From the wilds of Rudyard Kipling's India to a classic Disney film, The Jungle Book's latest chapter is a new musical. Based on Kipling's own childhood in India, The Jungle Book follows the young orphan Mowgli coming of age under the tutelage of his animal friends and mentors. But, says Mary Zimmerman, the musical's Tony-winning director, we are all written into the Jungle Book.
You know, it really is leaving the jungle that all of us have to go through, leaving the wonderment of childhood into the world of adult power.
Commissioned to create the musical adaptation several years ago, Zimmerman says she was immediately mindful of Kipling's own harrowing story, when at the age of 8, he was left by his parents in a brutal British boarding school.
It was a really terrible place, and Kipling and his sister were very profoundly physically abused and possibly sexually abused. And for Kipling to write about this as a Victorian more than once in his fiction and in his autobiography, you know that he considered it a very serious and life-changing or shaping element of his life.
In his later stories, Zimmerman says Kipling yearned for the India in which he was first raised, the India where she also took her creative team to begin adapting the piece.
We're just gathering impressions and feelings, and literally the way the light is hitting through a certain window or the way a bird flew up. It's just sort of endless.
One of the biggest hooks, though, was the Indian music, which music director Doug Peck infused with the film's jazz score for a rousing mashup.
Indian music doesn't use harmony in any sort of Western sense. However, what they do use is tremendous melodic and rhythmic complexity, and always a goal that the music making is very vocal, is very soulful.
Project was the hardest project I've ever done.
All of the show's creators are mindful of the weight of toiling with a story, imagery, and music known to millions thanks to the movie. But Zimmerman says she both visually and musically quotes the film. She and Peck also had the added benefit of access to Richard Sherman, who along with his brother Robert wrote most of the original music, including songs that didn't make it into the film.
He doesn't dictate every little element of what the arrangement, what the rhythm, what the harmony will be. He writes a song that he expects you to explode and take off on a journey with.
He has genius advice on arrangement, and he has such showbiz acumen, and if it's of a certain period, but there's great charm. He's so complimentary all the time, like a great father or uncle is like, oh, you kids, it's just terrific. It's just terrific what you've done. It's just, oh my goodness, it's so good. You know, and he just pours that on us.
Proving that, not unlike Kipling, you can go home again.
And Jared Bowen is here. All right, so seriously, Jared, I get confused between The Jungle Book and The Lion King. I mean, are there similarities in a way? Did the moral of the story, and no?
Well, I guess both are coming-of-age stories and understanding this circle of life. But I think that, to quote the song, but I think The Jungle Book is more about, realizing where you come from and also realizing that you have to move on from it at some point. And that's really the heart of Kipling's stories in The Jungle Book.
And how Disney has this thing become?
This is
because The Lion King's totally Disney.
No. What's totally Disney are things like Mary Poppins and Beauty and the Beast, where they literally take those cartoon characters and have put the same costumes on stage. And not unlike The Lion King, I think they've handed this over to a really terrific director. Mary Zimmerman is so acclaimed. She's a Tony Award winner. She's a MacArthur Genius Grant winner.
Yeah, she'd be horrified if she heard what I said.
She's got such a wonderfully theatric sensibility, and she works in a really organic way too. So I think that's why when you see this Jungle Book, and I haven't yet because it's opening officially on Wednesday, but I know a lot of the backstory, I think when you see this Jungle Book, the way she crafts it and working in all the different elements, it feels very organic and it does not feel cartoony.
Have you seen all the costumes and everything? Because remember that Lion King costumes were unbelievable.
Right, and the costumes here, I think are in a similar vein too, in that they're very mindful of, it's really about the actor here, and the costumes are sort of secondary, but you certainly have every sense of the Indian infusion from the sets to the costumes to the colors, and then, of course, the music here.
Yeah, and you said this Ben Sherman. Is it Ben?
Richard Sherman.
Richard Sherman, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had the great fortune of interviewing Richard Sherman a couple of years ago, talking to him about Mary Poppins. And he and his brother, Robert Sherman, they were Disney's darlings toward the end. They wrote A Small World, and they wrote a lot of the other films. And Disney loved them, and they were so young at the time. And so they crafted all of this music. Richard Sherman is still is 85 years old now, and he's still available and accessible, and really worked with the crew here to come up with this music and adapt it so that it still has his life and essence.
I always wonder about those child actors. Is there more than one? Is this kid on tour? I mean, it's hard.
I don't know the story for this one, but I saw him in this rehearsal or from our footage from the rehearsal, and he was fantastic. And actually, the whole cast is. And I have to mention that the way Mary Zimmerman works is that she goes in without a script, and so the whole creative team, the cast, everybody together sort of collaborates, and they sort of excavate the material. She of course knows what the narrative arc is going to be, but it's all about finding the piece. And of course, once you have some of the core elements about like the narrative arc and the songs, you can craft it, but it works differently.
All right. Jared Bowen, thanks so much.
All right.
All right, and that is it for Greater Boston. Tomorrow night, Graham Nash of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young fame joins us with his new book, Wild Tales of Rock and Roll Life. And as mentioned, we'll also be joined by Republican gubernatorial challenger Charlie Baker. That and more tomorrow at 7 on WGBH2. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.